Will the meeting please come to order? And will you join me in the salute to the flag, please? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Chair Machin,
Here.
Vice Chair Ebley,
Here.
Commissioner Durr, here. Commissioner Earp, here. Commissioner Gallagher, here. Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Liang, Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Queel,
here.
Commissioner Jones, and Commissioner Lopez are absent. We have quorum.
All right. Would you do the what do you call it? The what? Yes, that's it. I don't have that list in front of me.
Those wishing to speak, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do. Thank you. You may be seated.
I assume there's no need for a closed session?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. The next item would be the consent agenda. And consent agendas are considered, consent items are considered routine in nature and may be enacted in one motion. All public and non-public hearings will be opened at one time. Any item may be discussed separately upon request of a member of the Planning Commission or a member of the public. Do we have a consent agenda?
Yes, Your Chair, we do have actually 6 items on the consent calendar tonight, and I will briefly go over those items. The first one is the minutes of the October 10th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting. Staff recommends approval of the minutes. Second item on the consent calendar is conditional use permit 14-08, which is a request to develop and operate a service station on a 1-acre parcel at 5985 North Palm Avenue. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit with appropriate conditions. Item 3 on the consent calendar is conditional use permit 14-07, which is a request to develop a car dealership in 2 phases on a 0.83 acre parcel, just under an acre parcel at 1295 East Baseline Street. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit with appropriate conditions. Item 4 on the consent calendar is a request to develop a drive-through self-serve car wash, again on a 0.81 acre parcel at 1710 West Baseline Street. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit with appropriate conditions. Item 5 on the consent calendar is conditional use permit 17-21, which is a request to remove an existing 70-foot wireless telecommunications facility and replace it with a new 80-foot tower on a 1.5 acre parcel located at 1333 East 39th Street. Staff is recommending approval of that conditional use permit with appropriate conditions. And the last item on the consent calendar is a recommendation for a vacation of a what's known as a paper street, a street that actually never was built. It is a portion of North Chestnut Avenue. This would be between Little League Drive and Cable Creek channel as part of the recently approved Rancho Palmas specific plan. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation to the city council that the street vacation would be consistent with the general plan. With that, staff is recommending approval of all 6 items on the consent calendar.
Do we have any questions or comments on these? Anything from the public? If not, I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Public hearing items. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from staff, and then the public hearing will be opened. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak. Next, members of the public will be allowed to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and also fill out a request to speak form. The forms are located on the table by the door. When your name is called, come forward and speak into the microphone. Say and spell your name and give your address for the taped record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. The public hearing will then be closed and the Planning Commission will begin deliberations and make a decision. All actions except general plan amendments and amendments to the Municipal Development Code are final action unless an appeal is filed, and fee paid within 15 days to the Community Development Department. If you challenge the resultant action of the Planning Commission in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in this agenda, or in written correspondence delivered to the Community Development Department at or prior to the public hearing. May we have the staff report on item 7, please?
Yes, you may. Item number 7 is conditional use permit 17-09 and public convenience or necessity letter 17-02. The proposed project is to allow an establishment of an ABC Type 20 license for off-sale beer and wine in conjunction with a previously approved service gas station with convenience store containing approximately 5,542 square feet. That was approved under conditional use permit 15-14. The property is located on a parcel on several parcels, approximately 0.98 acres at 515 North Waterman Avenue within the Commercial General 1 zone. This is a location of the existing site. To the north of that, you have some commercial properties. To the east of that as well, you have some commercial within the county, and the south, there is some county properties abutting there as well. Here's an aerial map of the existing site. Currently, right now, the existing gas station and convenience store is not built yet. It's still in the process waiting for the application for the ABC. The current census analyzes that it's within tract 65. Currently, right now, they're allowed 5 licenses to operate for off-sale. Currently, there is 9 active licenses with 1 ABC license that has been surrendered. The recommendation from the police department is to forward the recommendation subject to the listed conditions of approval. Here we have provided the census tract. As you can see, it is a pretty large census tract that also includes some of the county properties. And also we've included a 1,000-foot radius of all the existing off-sale licenses to include not only the Type 20, but also the Type 21 licenses. Here are the nearest businesses and sensitive uses depicted. We do have a school, Anderson Elementary, located 0.05 miles from the property, a church, Greater Bethel Missionary Baptist Church, located approximately 0.06 miles, a park, Succumb Lake Park, located approximately 2.5 miles, a residence that actually immediately to the west of the project site within the San Bernardino County jurisdiction, and that's approximately 358 feet. And then we do have the off-sale ABC Type 20 and Type 21 licenses to include Jimmy's Liquor, approximately 220 feet, Circle K, 295, and Waterman, approximately 0.27 miles, ShopRite 2 Market, approximately 63 miles, 0.63 miles, my apologies, J&J Market, approximately 0.98 miles, Ellis Liquor, approximately 1.04 miles, Airport Market, approximately 1.09 miles. I'm so sorry, it's a little bit far away from me. AMPM Arco Station, approximately 1.09 miles, and then CNR Mini Mart, approximately 1.5 miles, with ANS Liquor, approximately 1.54 miles. This is the existing site, a south view from Ward Street. This is east view from Waterman Avenue. This is a north view from West 5th Street. I provided the site plan as reference only, so that way you're familiar with the previously approved convenience store site and gas station. And this is a floor plan of what the convenience store is going to look like, and they're going to be providing their alcohol within this area. With that, the Planning Division staff is in support of the requested ABC Type 20 license based on the recommendation of approval from the City's Police Department. And although the overall census tract is over-concentrated with ABC licenses, it is a large census tract that covers a large geographic area, not only within the city, but also within the San Bernardino County jurisdiction. Our recommendation is therefore for the Planning Commission to adopt Resolution 2017-018, adopting the categorical exemption and approving conditional use permit 17-09 and letter of public convenience or necessity 17-02 based on findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. If you do have any questions, I'm here to answer questions as well as the applicant.
Any questions? Sure, you have a question.
If I may, Chair, Elizabeth, could you actually go back quickly to the distance graphic that you had up there?
Yes, of course.
The next one.
The next one.
No, the one that showed distances to parks.
The other next. Oh, forward.
There.
There we go.
There you are.
Here we go.
Yeah. I think I would like to point out, it looks like there may be the distance to Seacom Lake Park. I think it may be a typo. While the park is addressed off of, and I don't think this changes staff's recommendation, but just for clarity, the park is certainly addressed at the North Sierra Avenue address, but the park itself is a very large park. So in actuality, it is closer than 2.5 miles. And I think that was just the mapping when it was being put together.
That's correct.
But I think just for clarity purposes, it is important that everybody note that the park is actually closer than that. The edge of the park is closer than that. Again, I don't believe that changes our recommendations, but I think that's important.
Thank you, Mark.
Do we have any idea of the timeline for construction on this?
They are willing to move forward as soon as they're able to get a recommendation on this application. So they're actually been wanting to move forward pretty quickly with it. Yes.
Does the applicant, are they here?
Yes, the applicant is here.
Is there how they're going to deal with the homeless in the area? There's a lot of homeless in that area. Obviously, I drive by there every day. And do you have some kind of plan of how to handle that?
If you are able to, come up there and speak on that side, please.
Good evening. My name is Lincoln Watasi. I'm the president for Yum Yum Donuts. We have a large number of stores in Southern California, perhaps not by design, but the reality is a lot of those stores are in some rougher areas and neighborhoods. And so over time, we've not necessarily by choice, but we've been forced to have programs and approaches to deal with every type of neighborhood.
Is there security on site or
No, we don't.
no security?
Yeah, I can't think of any
Cameras?
cameras. We're big fans of camera systems, so we think that's good. Money well spent.
Thank you.
Two other speakers who filled out speaker slips. Michael Volpone.
Hi, my name is Mike Volpone, Volpone. We own all the property on the west side of Waterman, from 5th Street all the way up to the car wash, and recently sold the corner property to 7-Eleven. One thing they didn't mention is the 7-Eleven is already built, and it is will be selling alcohol on that corner directly across the street, 40 yards away. So that's one thing that they missed on there. The park is actually about 150 yards at the most. All the business in that area, I have a letter from 9 of the businesses right in that general area from 544 Waterman up to 598. Everybody is opposed to this. There's already 2 liquor stores on the corner, Jimmy's and the upcoming 7-Eleven. A third one is just another problem we're going to have. We have problem with indigent and homeless every day. We have fires, we have trash, we have people that we have to move along every single day. The business next to us, they started a fire, the homeless started a fire, burned the building down right behind the car wash. We don't even bother calling the police anymore because every time we do, they just say there's nothing they can do. We have them squatting on our property on a daily basis. We come out there in our parking lots, they're urinating on our buildings. I mean, it's just a mess. And another liquor store is only going to make it worse. So I have a letter here signed by 9 of the business owners. So we urge you not to do it. 3 liquor stores, the church and the school right down the street, and the homeless. If you go around the corner, Bell Street, if you go up Bell Street, on any day you will find people smoking marijuana, shooting heroin, having sex. Drive up Bell Street any day from 5th Street up. During the middle of the day, nighttime, whenever you want. And there are people camped against our walls, in tents. The homeless are there all the time, and the city just lets them go. The police will move them along, and the next day they're right back. So we have all kinds of stuff stolen on a daily basis, vandalism. It's just ridiculous. And the police just are understaffed. They can't do anything about it. So we urge you, please, of all the businesses. I talked to 30 businesses, and none of them showed up tonight. So every one of them is opposed to it. Every single one in that area. I mean, we've been here a long time. We've had that property since the early 70s. And have been long upstanding citizens with the city, had great businesses there. And just every day, day in and day out, we're inundated with problems.
We have a question.
Just want to be clear. Did you say that you sold the property to Circle K?
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven, yeah. Thank you.
And the building is just about done. Their tanks are in, their fuel tanks are in, and they're probably 30 to 45 days away from actually opening the store.
So you had no objection to their?
Well, 2 wasn't as much of a problem. Now we're going the 3rd. On the same corner. It actually wasn't our property. We had sold the property prior, and the person that bought it from us sold it to 7-Eleven, so we had no control over that.
For the applicant, no, I'm sorry, for citizen, do you own property in that area now?
Yes, we own
In
544 Waterman, 560 Waterman, 598 Waterman, all the way back to Bell Street. Second Lake is our back street. Bell Street is the back of our shop. They
Thank
come
you.
over the fence nightly. I mean, we can't leave anything out at night. Cars get broken into, wires stolen, everything.
Thank you.
Through the chair, staff. I have a question of staff.
Yes, sir.
What are the proposed hours of operation of this business?
Let me
I
get
see
that
it's
for
Yum
you.
Yum Donut Shop, so I would imagine it'd probably be early.
Yeah, they're going to operate 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Thank you.
And they're going to be divided into 3 shifts with 4 employees per shift.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else from the commission? We still have another speaker, Ahmad. Just Ahmad.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Ahmad Gadiri with A&S Engineering. We're the architect of the project for Yum Yum Donuts. And we didn't get a chance to give you an update on the building itself, as our gracious planner indicated. This project was approved last year, and we've been going through plan check with the staff. They've been great to work with us. We're building permit, everything is ready to go. We're just trying to finalize the offsite improvements and working with Southern California Edison before we can start construction. Contractor has been selected, and this is the last step that we're trying to finalize, but construction is going to move forward. And as Lincoln indicated, they're very, their corporate entity, have a lot of sites. They have programs in place for all their sites. They have other locations that have licenses of such, and they have programs and rigorous training for their employees. And they're a very, responsible corporate company, and they'll, this is a $5 million investment on this project, and they would do everything possible to maintain it in good condition and great operating manner. And again, we've read the conditions, no problem with complying with those conditions, and we've spent quite a bit of time with our planner and the police department to come up with these conditions and make sure we comply. So again, we are here to answer any questions you might have. And I think Lincoln has some pictures of the building, what it's going to look like once it's finished, if you'd like to see it. Yeah.
So we are very excited about this project. Just a little bit of background. So Yum Yum Donuts acquired Winchell's Donuts back in 2004. So we are Yum Yum Winchell's Donuts. And that's kind of how the genesis of the name for the project. Since we're Yum Yum and we're Winchell's, when you put those two together, with a little creativity, you may come up with the win-win concept. And the idea is it really is, we're looking to offer gasoline at prices that would be well received by the community, by our customers. We're adding the convenience piece of fast food, custom-made fast food, where a person would walk up to a kiosk and it would say like breakfast, lunch, or dinner. They would select breakfast, and then they would say, would you like a sandwich or a breakfast burrito? I want a sandwich. And the whole idea is time of service, to get a good value and to get our customers back on the roads and onto with their busy lives. And then, of course, we're going to have the donut piece, because that's what we do well. So it's a very unique. I don't think that, to my knowledge, there is not a gas station with convenience, fast food, customizable fast food, and a donut shop all in that offering. So our hope is that this would be a project that would be very well received by the folks living around the site. So if, with the photographs or the illustrations are meant just to show that, we are looking to, we want to give this project the highest chance for success, and so we are hoping that somebody who first approaches is introduced to the site really walks away with the idea that this was, a Class A, well thought out and well executed project. So, are there any questions about the illustrations or the concept itself?
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
You're not proposing a drive-through, are you?
There's no drive-through.
No drive-through. Okay. Thank you.
I don't claim expertise in the sale of,
Yes.
Is it beer and wine? But are there any restrictions in relationship to single can versus the buying of six packs? There's been some discussion before that sometimes that can limit those the homeless for coming in and just buying
Sure.
a single one as opposed to a customer who was.
I know our application has.
Commissioner, if I may answer that question
Okay,
for
yes.
you.
Thank you.
There was conditions of approval placed by the police department to regulate the amount. So they did say that no cooler products, either wine or malt beverage based, shall be sold in less than 4-pack quantities. No containers of beer or malt liquor shall be sold which are not in their original factory packages of 6 packs or greater.
Okay.
So they did put those types of restrictions
Okay.
as
So
part
I
of
think
their
we
condition.
discussed that before.
Yes.
So maybe I
Yes.
just missed that in there. Okay.
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Question for staff. Looking at the conditions of approval, I believe it's the last page of the staff report, the Planning Commission staff report. ABC off-sales license conditions, and then it says planning conditions. Would the applicant be subject to all the conditions of approval in that? Because there are boxes that are checked off and certain boxes have not been checked off. So I'm not sure if these conditions would be applicable to the project.
Thank you. Yes, so they would be applicable to the checked boxes. And then the planning division does have separate conditions that were incorporated as well into the file. So this is a standard, the police department receives our standard conditions and they check what they would apply for this type of ABC license with this use. And then the planning division will add a separate one. So we have I apologize, we have a template, and so they continue to use the template even though they don't check some of those boxes. So to answer your question, the checked boxes were conditions that were by the police department that were added into the conditions of approval. The planning division does have their own separate conditions, and those were added as well.
Okay, so under the security guards, it wasn't checked. So would you have a security guards at the site? I wasn't sure if that was explained earlier, pursuant to my colleague's question.
No, that wouldn't make sense out of the box too. I can't think of personally any service stations where there are security guards, so that would not be our approach to begin.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just for the record, after speaking to all the businesses, none of us are against the donut shop and the gas station, and we'll probably be as big as customers. It's just the alcohol part that we're objecting to. So that's the problem, and nobody realizes what's down there until you're down there. I just left there in dark, and the people coming up and down, walking up to us, begging, everything about it is just, it's disastrous. And it's not going to get any better with people loitering in their parking lot. And with no security to scurry them along, the police department can't do anything about it. I talk to the cops all the time, and they can't do anything. There's not enough units. Unless something actually somebody's actually injured or killed, they can't even roll. So.
We have another speaker, Richard Oren.
Hi, my name is Richard Ortiz. I don't live in that area, but I lived here in San Marino before. My brother lives around the corner off of Monterey and East Waterman. So, you know, I've been going, I come here to visit my brother once in a while. And I know that this area hasn't been developed, you know, with this site. It's been there for a long time. I think it's something, there's a lot of homeless there, yes. I think that as you open new businesses, you know, to go out there and put more lighting, you know, have people, I had to go to the liquor store to go take my nephews to buy ice cream or something. If there was a business like yours, I would go there instead, even if I have to go across the street, you know. So we need more businesses around San Bernardino in order to make a change. The design looks nice. So, I mean, it'll bring something different. If there's beer, people that are going to buy beer are going to buy beer. The homeless are going to be, pretty much are going to move away if they see too much traffic. Right now, they can hide in the darkness. They can live there, and you didn't even know, you know. So that's why they're there, you know. You have the park. The park is not being utilized, so therefore that's creating problems because there's not enough lights. So there's all this create problems. So I would think open more businesses, and they would move somewhere else where it's not as dark, where they can hide, where they can just, you know, make it very convenient. So I support this project, and I know the area very well, so that's why I speak in this matter. I feel that I have like a say in the area. So thank you very much.
Would you spell your last name for the record, please?
Ortiz, O-R-T-I-Z.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one more question for the applicant. Thanks. It seems like this is a pretty nice project. I guess my question is this liquor license critical to the commercial viability of it? Is it go, no go? Or?
It is critical. The advice we're getting from folks who, because again, this is a fairly new project for us, the convenience store piece, gas station, is that with the very high cost, Ahmad had mentioned $5 million, that yes, it's a critical, I can't say for sure it's a yes or no go, but it would be something that we would have to think long and hard about, and maybe it would be a no-go.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for staff. Is there a way that we can implement a preliminary probationary period for the license so that if there are any instances or any discrepancies once they've commenced business, we would be able to address that down the line? Would that be an option? Perhaps like a 6-month probationary period or something like that? We go back and review it.
Yes, Commissioner Jones, we did put in a condition of approval that within 6 months from the approval of the conditional use permit and the letter of public convenience and necessity, for a period of 2 years, the planning division would conduct an inspection of the business operations and property to ensure that they are in compliance with all the conditions of approval and satisfactory to the community development director.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else for the applicant, please? Apparently not. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say I agree with the last speaker. I think you hit it right on the head. We need more business in this area, and I believe that by doing so, it'll make some of the problems go away. Not all of them, but I think it'll help. And I'm going to vote in favor of this if anybody wants to know. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
Make a motion that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2017-060, adopting the categorical exemption and approving conditional use permit 17-09 and public convenience or necessity letter 17-02 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
One no. The motion carries. Staff report, please. Item 8.
Yes, good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. Item 8 is conditional use permit number 1726 involving revised conditional use permit 1113 and revised subdivision 1103, which related to revised tentative tract map 18829. The proposal, as previously mentioned, is to we have a previously adopted or approved conditional use permit that was approved. At that point in time, it was called the Waterman Gardens Project, which you may be familiar with on Baseline and Waterman. That time, that project was approved for the project, I should say, what they're proposing now is 411 units. 86 units will be market rate. We're also going to include approximately 195,000 square feet of commercial mixed uses along Waterman and Baseline, which I will show you later on the site plan. We're also going to include 2 private community centers to serve the Waterman Gardens or the Arrowhead Grove site, if you will. And they're also going to include 1 public community center for the neighborhood at large. The site includes approximately 39 acres, and it's located on the southeast corner of Waterman and Baseline. This is a location map. So again, it's a Baseline to the north, Olive is to the south, we have Waterman to the west, and La Junta is to the east. It's an aerial of the existing locations. We have the commercial corridors that bound along Baseline and Waterman Avenue. We have a school site to the south. We have some commercial uses to the east. A little bit of background. In February of 2014, the mayor and common council at that time, they approved conditional use permit 1113 and the subdivision for the tentative map, and they've also adopted or approved a development agreement, and that development agreement was between the city and the Housing Authority of San Bernardino County. At that time, again, it was still 411 units, and it was only 48 market rate units, and there were also some provisions for community facilities and open space amenities. You may recall back in December of 16, we processed a specific plan which was ultimately adopted by the City Council. The Waterman Baseline specific plan also certified an environmental impact report for that project. So that covered a large area, and this Arrowhead Grove project is actually at the center of that specific plan area. Most recently, in September of this year, 62 of the homes at the corner of La Junta and Olive were completed. We just had a grand opening. I think it was about a month or so ago that we've seen, and I think you may be familiar with that site. I do have a photo that shows that project. So the National Corps has been working with the Housing Authority on revitalizing and redeveloping that site. Along with that, they did the Valencia Vista project, which is just a little south of that site. That's kind of a demonstration project. They were able to show the quality of work. What they did is this was part of the Arrowhead Grove project, and the process is that they would relocate some of those existing residents to this location, and then they would be able to proceed with phase 1 and the subsequent phases. So that's kind of the idea, or the plan is that they'll have the overall site plan will have a number of phases, and they will, as they build, they will relocate in and then backfill it that way. So this is an example of a recently completed project. This is a photo of the Olive Meadow project, which is the first phase, as I previously mentioned, on the corner of La Junta and Olive. Again, the revision, this project is based on the specific plan as I mentioned. Also had to take a look at the site. As I mentioned, it's been a number of years, and as a result of current market conditions and redevelopment going away and such, the Housing Authority worked with National Corps to come up with a revised site plan that better suited the redevelopment of the site. Took the specific plan into consideration. I'm really trying to utilize this intersection or this core of that area as a catalyst to ignite economic opportunities within that area. So phase 1 will have that was already completed is 62 units. Phase 2 will have 120 units, which will be a mix of market rate and affordable units. 3 will have 64 units, again the mix of the market rate and affordable. 4 will have the 92 units, same thing. Plus there will be an additional 73 units that will be dispersed within what the commercial and mixed use area. So again, the total will be, as was previously approved, at 411. It is increasing from 48 market rate units to 86. This is the concept plan of the site. Again, so you will notice essentially the left, or excuse me, the right and lower portions will be where the residential project will be developed. The kind of the screened back portion at the lower right-hand corner is the first phase that was completed and currently occupied. The upside down L at the baseline and Waterman is the approximately 11 acres that will be the commercial uses and will have spread throughout the additional 73 units that I previously described. Also is the revised tentative map that's included within that. Originally it was approved for 9 individual parcels. With the reconfiguration of the site and primarily the upper right-hand portion, or left-hand portion, I should say, parcel H, where they've combined 2 parcels, so we ended up with 8 parcels instead of the 9. This is a colored site plan of the project to kind of show where the units would be dispersed, and you can see where the amenities are also included within that site. There are a number of floor plans that they have. So the idea is that each phase, if you will be sort of like its own community, its own identity. As when I showed the earlier picture of the Olive Meadow project, the idea is not that the rest of the project look like that. That's kind of a flavor of the craftsmanship and the architecture and style that they do. So what they will have is a series of various floor plans and elevations, which I will go through now. They have series where they'll have like flats, so they're single story, 1 and 2 bedrooms, to townhome configurations that are from 2 to 4 bedrooms and vary in square footages. They have 3-bedroom flats, which would be single story. They'd be stacked. And then they have a straight 4-bedroom units that would again be dispersed throughout the project. Again, they have a number of clustering. Again, they've really tried to keep with a number of the principles of the specific plan that was adopted. If you recall, there are a number of design features to kind of use, rather than just a row housing sort of thing. It's mixing the architectural styles, building heights, clustering types. So you can see that there's a variety of different footprints, if you will. This shows a demonstration of a first set. There's actually a total of 8 various configurations. This would be the next one. So it's really an idea of how do we take those those 411 units and disperse them and not look so sterile through the project. This is some examples of the elevations. We have some California craftsmen. We have the contemporary style. We also have a Spanish Mediterranean, and again, those will be dispersed throughout the site. These are some photos of the area. This is at Waterman and Olive. This is at the northeast corner. This is looking south on Waterman off of Baseline. This is at Baseline and La Junta, looking towards the southwest. This is looking into the site off of Orange. This is looking westerly at the intersection at Crestview. National Corps, and we have representatives from the Housing Authority that are here. I would to make a presentation as well. Would also like to add that the project, as I mentioned, has been designed compatible with the specific plan. With that, there was the environmental impact report that I mentioned. This project falls within the guidelines of the parameters of that specific plan in both DEIR. There was no further environmental evaluation that was required for that because it was contemplated as part of the specific plan and environmental impact report. So with that, our recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt 2017-065, forwarding a recommendation to the Mayor and City Council that they adopt a previous environmental determination involving the previous, the certified environmental impact report, and that they approve conditional use permit 1726 for revised conditional use permit 1113 and revised subdivision 1103 for revised tentative tract map 18829 based on our findings and conditions of approval. And I'd be glad to answer any questions. I know there was a lot of information here. Our staff report covered a lot of items that I'd be glad to go over if you have specific questions on that. And as I mentioned, I have Alexa here from National Corps that has a presentation ready as well. And we have representatives from the Housing Authority to ask specific questions about the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd just like to announce I was involved in the conditional use permit previous approval CUP 1113, so I would like to recuse myself from this project. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? We have several speakers. Mr. Detlev Pikert of National Corps, I believe.
Alexa. I think he's going to send Alexa and proxy.
Yes, if it's okay, I'm going to be representing the applicant and would love to give a brief presentation and then have our lead architect, Deddy.
Would you say and spell your name, please?
Yes, my name's Alexa Washburn, ALEXA-WASHBURN.
And your address.
9860 Haven Avenue, Rancho Cucamonga. That's our corporate office.
Thank you.
Okay, well, good evening, Honorable Chair and Commissioners. Again, my name is Alexa Washburn. I'm Vice President of Planning with National Community Renaissance, otherwise known as National Corps. National Corps was selected by the applicant, the Housing Authority of the County of San Bernardino, to be their development partner. Oh, and this, let's go back. Excuse me one second. There we go. To be their development partner in redeveloping the former Waterman Gardens public housing into the new master planned mixed-use community of Arrowhead Grove. So I'm proud to be representing this public-private partnership tonight. We do have the Executive Director, Maria Razzo, in the audience, Executive Director of the Housing Authority, as well as the Deputy Executive, Gus Jocelyn, and our entire development partnership team, which is really larger than just the Housing Authority and National Corps. But for the past year, we've met regularly with city staff, county staff, Housing Authority staff, National Corps, and the residents to refine the site plan that's before you tonight, the elevations, the architectural styles, even select the buildings which we will apply the architectural styles to. So this has been a true team effort with every detail of the plan agreed upon by this team of the City, County, Housing Authority, and National Corps. This project has a rich history. Begins back in 1943 when public housing was constructed on the site. And then most recently in 2010, the Housing Authority started the master planning process to redevelop this outmoded public housing. Within months of the city adopting the master plan, redevelopment was abolished in California. And redevelopment was our primary financing source. And so the feasibility of the original master plan relied heavily on redevelopment. And so the partnership team was forced to restructure the financing of the project and also redesign the project to meet some of the new public financing sources criteria that's out there. But it also gave us an opportunity to expand the scope beyond the original 38 acres and really look at assessing the neighborhood comprehensively as a whole and how this substantial project could act as a catalyst to revitalize the neighborhood. So we worked with the community to identify solutions to stabilize and preserve the single-family neighborhoods that surround the site, to revitalize the commercial corridors of Waterman and Baseline, to increase employment and economic opportunities, to reduce crime and blight, to work in partnership with the school district to expand educational opportunities at E. Neil Roberts Elementary School directly to the south, and to provide new housing opportunities for all income levels, not only replacing the 250 public housing units, but integrating market rate units to make this a true mixed use, mixed income community of choice. As Oliver explained, in order to implement this vision of this neighborhood revitalization, a year ago, the city adopted the specific plan, the Waterman Baseline Neighborhood Specific Plan. In fact, it was exactly a year ago that I was before you. And this specific plan brought the community together to establish this cohesive vision and put the land use framework and the zoning framework in place. The neighborhood revitalization and implementation of the specific plan began with the grand opening of Valencia Vista in October of 2016. Valencia Vista is located at the corner of 9th Street in Valencia. It provides 76 affordable apartment homes, substantial on-site amenities. We have a 2,200 square foot clubhouse community center that's used to host after-school programs for the children, health and fitness classes for the residents. We have a computer lab that the children use as well as the residents for resume building and so forth, a swimming pool, a fitness room, community gardens, massive in-unit amenities including Energy Star appliances, central air conditioning and heat, and laundry facilities. We also have on-site property management. We're proud that this project was certified LEED Platinum, which is the highest level of environmental sustainability that can be achieved. And you can see by the architectural style, we incorporated a Spanish mission style. As soon as this project went up, we immediately saw an impact in the neighborhood, with surrounding properties wanting to improve and beautify their facades. Most recently, last month, we, in partnership with the Housing Authority, held the grand opening of Olive Meadow. This was our first on-site phase at Arrowhead Grove. It provides 62 affordable apartment homes, substantial on-site amenities, including a community room, tot lot, community gardens, barbecue picnic areas. This phase was also certified LEED Platinum, again, the highest level of sustainability. And you'll see that we incorporated, mixed in a new architectural kind of Southwest style with Olive Meadow. So with the approval tonight of we've been able to refine this specific plan, and we're ready to move forward with the subsequent phases 2 through 4 and begin the integration of market rate units into Arrowhead Grove. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Deddy Piker. He is our principal architect, and he's going to kind of walk you through our thought process of the site plan and the elevations and architectural style.
Thank you, Alexa. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Detlev Pikert. I'm a principal and the lead architect with RRM Design Group for this project. And I must say it's a great honor to be working with National Corps and the Housing Authority on this and the entire development team. And as Alexa mentioned, we have had a number of meetings, including city staff, to really refine and come up with a plan that embodies the highest ideals of the entire development team and ultimately of the neighborhood and of the community surrounding it. So I want to take just a few minutes. I know you're already a little bit familiar with the plan, but to just point out a few particular features. So this is the result of a number of iterations that came before and ultimately resulted in a plan that brought the development of the next phase to so that it would front on Baseline and really have a public presence in the neighborhood, that people of the community can see what's going on and see the the quality of the development and the neighborhood that's going to be located there. So this next phase, phase 2 we're calling it, consists of about 5.2 acres and 120 units in a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and it also includes 4 or 10 4-bedroom units that are integrated into that part of the site. One of the things, one of the features that is incorporated here is that we're realigning Crestview so that it aligns with Crestview on the other side of Baseline, and you can kind of see that curved line there, and I think that's going to make for a much more efficient and safer relationship and intersection at that location. We've kind of divided that phase 2 into 2 components, and one of the things that came out of our meetings and discussions, we actually had kind of a design charrette where we explored a lot of different ideas, architectural styles, unit types, and all of those things, and by consensus arrived at the plan that you have in front of you now and with the types of units that were described by your staff. But in this site, or I should say in this phase, we've divided into these 2 components, the one that fronts Baseline and then the component just to the south of that, and decided that it would be create kind of a richer sense of community there if each of these neighborhood areas incorporated a kind of a different architectural style to create a kind of a sense of identity and differentiation. So the project on the Baseline, or the component on fronting on Baseline, is in a contemporary style, and then the component just below that is in a California craftsman style, and I'll give you a little bit more understanding of that in a moment. And then just to the south of that, actually on a separate parcel, is a detention basin that's going to be located there and developed to deal with all the stormwater issues that will be generated by the redevelopment of the site there. You'll also see in the kind of in the middle of that phase, there's a community center, about 2,500 square feet of space, that will provide programs, Boys and Girls Club, after-school activities. There'll be offices there for leasing and management, etc. And then combined with that, there'll be a swimming pool. And then around some of the open space areas, we'll also be incorporating some community gardens where some of the residents can grow, their own vegetables, etc. And then as we move to the west, we come to the next phase, which is phase 3. And that consists of 62 units. It's about 2.7 acres. And it encompasses a portion of that oval area. And that neighborhood will be designed in a Spanish Mediterranean style. Again, you'll see that one of the features of the overall site planning is that we've located the parking kind of on the perimeter of the developed area in order to create as much open space, pedestrian-oriented open space as possible for the recreational uses of the residents, and to provide kind of on-site circulation, pedestrian circulation that is basically free from having to interact very much with the cars and traffic in the driveways. And then we've incorporated pathways that lead through the entire development, and ultimately we'll be creating nodes that will kind of encompass this educational village concept, in which some of these nodes will create kind of educational exhibits, etc., to encourage kind of a sense of kind of an educational growth environment overall. And then as we come back to looking at phase 2, right in the center of that, kind of between phase 3 and phase 4, there's another community center, and ultimately there'll also be another swimming pool for the community in that portion of the site. If you look to the southernmost portion of the site, you'll see that there's a building indicated and a swimming pool area, and that ultimately will be a community center for the greater community to be developed at some future time when funding for that can be raised. And that will, again, serve a greater community and create kind of a sense of connection to the greater community with the developed community of the next 2, 3, and 4 phase. Go to the next slide. So I'll talk a little bit about the design styles that we settled on. The contemporary style, which is located on Baseline, I think is kind of the idea there is to create a sense of kind of embracing the future, if you will, and also incorporating kind of an element that addresses the street at the ground level, the ground level portion of the building, to have kind of a commercial appearance to maybe ultimately encourage more commercial development in the area, and possibly even allow some of the units at the ground level to be transformed into some commercial space if there is demand at some point in the future. All of the buildings that you'll see here in this design concept are really four-sided architecture, meaning that no matter which perspective you're looking at a building, it always looks like a completely designed building that has entrances on all sides. In some cases, the entrances address the street. In some cases, entrances to the units will address the open spaces in interstitial spaces. This slide shows a rendering of the looking from across baseline. And again, you'll see we've incorporated some elements to just kind of convey a sense of a kind of commercial presence at the street. There'll be a wrought iron fence kind of to create some transparency so that the units themselves are engaging the street. And at some point in the future, when time warrants it, it may be possible to remove the wrought iron fence and really create a much more engaging pedestrian experience at the street there. And then that next portion of phase 2 in the California Craftsman style really tries to utilize the qualities of that particular style, create an authentic experience of something that is really very much a part of our California history. Again, using low-pitched roofs, broad corbelled overhangs, again, bold plaster kind of massing elements, board and batten accents, wood trim, window trellises, and sunshades, etc. And again, this building that you're looking at here is one in which the ground level are flats, and then the upper level are two-story townhomes, so that at any given point, people are only really going up one level to get to their unit. Inside the unit on the second level, of course, you have another set of stairs inside each individual unit that takes you to the bedrooms on the third floor. And then this is a rendering looking across one of the streets towards one of the buildings. And again, you can see that each ground level has its own private entrance so that you really have this sense of engagement of the open space and the community surrounding it. Then this is finally the Spanish Mediterranean style, which is one of the other neighborhoods in the development. And that style you're very familiar with, again, using tile roofs, arched corbelled openings, light color plaster walls, predominantly low-pitched gable roof forms and awnings to add color and life to the building style. So that kind of gives you a summary of how we arrived at some of these ideas. And we're obviously very proud of the result. We think it's just going to be a fantastic community as it begins to be developed into these next phases. And this is a rendering of that Spanish Mediterranean style. This is kind of an overview just showing the site plan in the context of the neighborhood. And again, I would just point out that there are about 12 acres that are preserved to ultimately be developed to the highest and best use, which may be commercial. There may be some mixed use in that portion of the site eventually. And then you can also see the school below. And of course, we're creating kind of pathway relationships for the kids to cross Olive Street and get into the school property. And we're talking about working with the school district now to improve a number of the buildings that face on Olive there to create improved recreational amenities for the residents for the school. With that, I will turn it back over to Alexa, who will conclude the presentation.
I have a question for you.
Certainly.
Yes, could you tell us more about the planned after-school activities?
I will defer to Alexa or one of the other team members to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, we currently at Valencia Vista and Olive Meadow partner with the Boys and Girls Club and offer after-school programming for the children. So this includes, time to spend on homework and tutoring, time in the computer lab, as well as arts and crafts. So this is offered after school. We've also offer summer school programs. So when the kids are when they are out of school, we have them active in educational programs and engaged.
One more question. Would this just be for the children that live in this development?
The priority is given to our residents, and then if there is space available, we open it up to the wider community.
Thank you.
Trying to get at the core of it coming to the Planning Commission tonight. By the way, I've seen the portion that's completed, and it's magnificent and it's beautiful. Am I correct in understanding that it's coming here because there's an increase in the number of residential units? No, from
No.
350 to 411?
No,
No.
Our original entitlements included up to 411 units, so that number is not changing. What
Okay.
is changing is the number of market rate units that we will be integrating.
And will those be single-family dwelling homes?
No, we still plan for market rate apartment homes rentals.
I see. Okay, I think there was probably some confusion, at least on my part, when it came previously. When they talk about market rate housing, I'm thinking of individual single-family dwelling. So nowhere in the complex is there single-family dwelling.
Not planned at this time.
Not planned at this time. Okay, so okay, thank you.
I do have a question. Thank you. I think this is a terrific project. However, I'm anxious to hear some success stories, like a reduction in crime in the area, like a reduction in graffiti. That's what was sold to us at the Chamber of Commerce.
Sure.
So do you have those kind of stories?
I do, actually. One of our stories, we've been working closely with the city and the businesses along the Baseline and Waterman corridor, the commercial corridors. And we've been working with the city to start a commercial facade improvement program. We have several businesses interested and lined up to utilize that grant program, that matching grant program, to improve their facade. But the most visible facade improvement is, you can see at the northeast corner of Waterman and Baseline, that entire shopping center where Master's Donut used to be located, which did not sell donuts. We worked very closely with the police department to rid of that business, and the owner of the center has completely repainted and redone the facade and is looking for higher quality tenants at this time. So that's our first success story. Is Master's Donuts was a major crime generator, and we were able to remove that from the neighborhood in partnership with the police.
I think, Chair, if I may, kind of following up on what Alexa and Daddy said, I really can't stress, I think, enough how much of a partnership this really was between the county, the housing authority, the city, and National Corps. The larger specific plan, I don't think, would have been done but for the cooperative efforts and really the leadership on everybody's part. I think all of the entities took a role in that. And to answer Commissioner Gallagher's question, the project is coming back before the Planning Commission not to increase the number of units, but to redo the site plan and to add additional commercial. This was originally proposed as an entirely residential project. It now has 11 acres, a little over 11 acres of commercial that could be built into it. And the reason for that was, as Alexa mentioned, redevelopment in the state of California ended shortly after the project was approved, and redevelopment was the major source of funding of affordable housing projects, and that was true statewide. So when redevelopment went away, it wasn't really possible to carry forward with the project as it was originally proposed. So we have worked for a year on the site plan. It was really, it was a great partnership between all of the entities, and we're very pleased that everybody came forward and everybody agreed on this site plan as being really something that will transform the neighborhood. I know Commissioner Queel asked about, you know, immediate results or results to date, I guess is the better, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but results to date. It has been a little bit slower, and I think with this new site plan, there are some potential new funding opportunities that are being explored at the state level and also at the federal level. So we are very optimistic that the project, once it's approved by, if it's approved tonight or the commission recommends approval to the council and the council ultimately approves it, then we'll really start going out and looking for dollars to construct the next couple of phases. But I can't really stress enough the amount of time and effort that went into the project to get it to this point.
I'd also like to introduce Sandra Spadas. She is with National Community Renaissance and is our Director of Community Engagements, whose specific job is to work with the community of San Bernardino, the residents and the businesses, so she can tell you some more success stories.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. So in regards to your question about reducing crime, we are working closely with the San Bernardino Police Department and trying to collect some crime data, specifically Part 1 and Part 2. From 2012 to 2016, and we have conducted some preliminary analysis for that time period. So far, what we've seen is a decrease of crime, specifically in the intersection between Waterman and Baseline, and a lot of it has to be is due to the closing of Master's Donuts. So we are, you know, currently analyzing not only crime in that intersection, but also crime within the 38 acres of Arrowhead Grove. And working also with the city to collect the graffiti and other type of violations in that area. So as soon as we have final analysis of that, we will make sure to come back and share that information.
Thank you. We have two more speakers. Andrea Harlan.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Harlan, AndreaHarlin. I'm a field representative for Congressman Pete Aguilar. Our address is 685 East Carnegie Drive, Suite 100, San Bernardino. Unfortunately, the congressman could not be here today to express his support for this project, so he asked that I attend and do so. Last week, he submitted a letter of support to the city, and the applicant has that letter of support as well. So what I will do is just read a brief excerpt that pretty much underscores some of the benefits that have already been mentioned and some of the benefits for the residents of the area. Dear Chairman Machen, I'm writing to express my support for the Arrowhead Grove development proposal. If approved, this proposal will transform the Waterman Gardens public housing complex and its surrounding neighborhood into a sustainable mixed-use, mixed-income community with over 400 affordable multifamily, senior, and market-rate condominiums. This project will also provide recreational facilities, community centers, and a shopping center for residents in the central San Bernardino neighborhood. Over the next 10 years, future phases of the Arrowhead Grove project will include the development of 92 mixed-income rental units, improvements to street and traffic infrastructure, and the construction of retail, office, and commercial buildings. Additionally, direct and indirect jobs will be created, including hundreds of construction jobs and more than 12 full-time positions for Arrowhead Grove operational needs and maintenance and landscape. A key component of this neighborhood transformation plan is to ensure that residents are not displaced and have an opportunity to participate in the jobs and amenities this project will provide. I encourage you to give the Arrowhead Grove development proposal full and fair consideration consistent with applicable law and regulations. Sincerely, Pete Aguilar. Thanks.
Thank you. We have another speaker, Mr. Ronald Kelly.
I'm Ronald Kelly. I live at 200 East Block Valley Street. I've lived on that street for 55 years. And I want you to know that this developer has been lying to you ever since he started this project. I attended the first meeting at Waterman Gardens Maintenance Department. I attended the second one at E. Neil Roberts. And I attended the Planning Commission's meeting in 2013. They said they were going to start their development on the east side or the west side of the Waterman Gardens with their community and recreational building, and then work east. Well, they didn't. They started with the Valencia Vista project, which is beautiful. And then they started on the east end of Waterman Garden. They wanted to start on the west end so they could get the people across Waterman to come over to the development area. None of the people west of Waterman are going to go across Waterman. We can't. It's too dangerous. We have a marked crosswalk there, and people won't even stop. And they've increased the speed. The traffic is getting heavier. We have all kinds of fire trucks and ambulances going up and down. So how are we going to cross it? They say they're going to put a traffic light in. So, but like I said, they've been lying to you. They've been lying to the public. Most of these developers do the same thing. They promise you the moon and then give us nothing. So, but I already know you're going to approve it because you want the development.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions from the commission? Would anyone like to follow up on the last presentation?
I have a question.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure who it's for. Maybe it's for staff. When is that signal going to go in across Waterman for the crosswalk?
If you look on page, get the exact condition in the staff report, the conditions are actually tiered to various completion of units. And beginning on page 16 is where those are, and the crosswalk on Waterman is if you look at condition 72, oh, that's angle parking, I'm sorry. Do you remember which one, Oliver? Oh, it's the 300th unit. It would be condition 75. Yeah. On page 18. That's also what is different about these conditions than the previous set of conditions. The previous conditions weren't always tied clearly to a unit count. Some of them were tied to project phasing. Some of them didn't have particular triggers. The phasing has changed and will potentially change again based upon funding opportunities. A lot of the funding now comes through tax credits at the state level, and as those various programs become available, the housing authority, that's the property owner, and National Corps and the city as well, want to be able to potentially change some of the phasing. But the conditions are very clear that at unit 150, these improvements are done. At unit 200, these improvements are done. So that's the other thing that changed with these conditions.
Do we have an estimated time when that's going to be, when they hit 300? Is there any schedule?
I will probably let either National Corps or the Housing Authority talk about what they're doing on the funding.
Yes, our funding strategy, in partnership with the city, the county, and the Housing Authority, we will be submitting an application for an Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities grant in January. And that is to fund Phase 2 and Phase 3. So that's an additional 184 units on top of the 62 units. Then Phase 4, our intent would be to apply for 9% low-income housing tax credits. So if we are awarded ASIC funding, when we apply in January, we would be awarded in June and start construction next summer on the next phases. Then subsequent to that, we have the grand opening. We move forward then with Phase 4, which again would be intended to apply for tax credits in the first or second round of that following year. And then we're awarded start construction. It's about an 18-month construction period.
Thank you.
Any comments? Questions? I think I'm ready for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion adopting resolution number 2017-065, forwarding a recommendation to the mayor and city council, the adoption of the previous environmental determination and approval of conditional use permit 17-26 and revised subdivision 11-03, based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 9, general plan amendment.
Excuse me, if I may, Chairman, I think that the applicant was not in the room when we did the swear-in, so we might want to do that first. Dave, were you going to speak? Were you going to speak? On yours.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do. Thank you. You may be seated.
Commissioners, item number 9 is General Plan Amendment 1409, Development Code Amendment, Zoning Map Amendment 1418, and Development Permit Type D 1625. It involves a property located on north side of East 6th Street and north of Sterling Avenue. The proposed project is to change the general plan land use designation and zoning district classification from residential medium high to industrial light. Proposal is with the result of the change would be to allow the construction of a 420,000 square foot industrial high cube industrial facility. Project site is approximately 20 acres. This is a zoning map showing the property as pointed with the arrow there. Project is surrounded by the east, west, and to the north by the city of Highland. This is an aerial of the site, and this shows the zoning that surrounds the site. Again, it's a single-family residential on the sides that abuts the proposed project. site plan here is, again, for the 420,000 square foot building. Again, access to the property will be restricted to 6th Street. So they have the two driveways on both the east and western portions of the site. Remember how to do this. So you have you have an entrance up in here, back in here. There is an emergency access that's at the back of the facility. And then there's also here on Vale and on 7th Street, these access points are only for emergency fire access. So those will be gates that will be locked, with only access available to the county fire department in the case of an emergency. Again, the facility does meet the fire requirements in terms of accessibility for emergency access. It also complies with all of our development standards as it relates for industrial buildings. In keeping consideration for the residents surrounding, property has been conditioned to provide a landscape screening along the adjacent properties that are adjacent to the residential properties to reduce that impact of the building. This is a rendering of the proposed building from different sides. And this is a view of the property that's on 6th Street looking northwest. This is, again, look from 6th Street looking northeast. This is looking to the west. Again, vacant surrounding. This is looking to the south from the northern portion of the site. And this is looking, this is that corner off of Cypress that's at the back of the site that if you saw there was another emergency exit. This is looking east from the dead end street that's within the city of Highland. This is Vine Street. This is looking east onto the site. So back here would be where the fire access gate would be to the site. And this is on 7th Street, similar situation with emergency access here. The city of Highland has suggested that the applicant consider building a cul-de-sac at both of these two locations. After reviewing that, again, it would require acquisitions of dedication and improvement of a cul-de-sac bulb for a purpose of only for fire access. What the applicant will do is provide appropriate curb and gutter and apron access here, so fire engines could access that here and on Vine Street. I will go, if I may, go back to a site plan that discuss another item and a condition of approval that we'd like to be added. We did discover, it has been discussed, that there is there's an easement or a parcel, essentially approximately in this area here, about 1,000 square feet, that has been designated as a well site. Legal descriptions kind of describe it, doesn't really give dimensions in terms of of an easement for access off of 6th Street. They have worked with the applicant and the other party to that easement, and what we'd like to do is I'd like to read into the record a modification to existing condition number 21S that we would suggest as a modification. We shall read as follows. Prior to the issuance of a grading permit, the applicant shall do the following. A, investigate title, ownership of the well for parcel, assessor's parcel number 1192-201-01, and plot all easements related to the well parcel. The applicant shall then submit its findings and maps to the City of San Bernardino and the current owner of the well site, which at this time is the Cohens. And B, the applicant shall thereafter work diligently with the city and the Cohens to either, 1, keep the well site and pipeline access and related easements, etc., in place in favor of the current ownership, or acquire 100% of the ownership of the well site / parcel and either merge it to its own parcel or leave it as a separate parcel. So that's an agreed upon condition between both parties that they both would like to include as part of the record. That concludes my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions. The applicant and representative is here as well to answer any questions if you
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Would you talk more about how Vine Street and 7th Street will be improved at the boundary of the property?
It would be, essentially, there would be aprons that would be installed, so there wouldn't be a cul-de-sac, there wouldn't be a cul-de-sac, if you will. It was essentially, if you're looking at the photograph here, so at this portion, so these curbs, these existing curbs here would be merged into what would be an improved apron per city standards, so they can drive onto it, and then there would be a fencing that would be equal to the 8-foot height of the block wall for the emergency access. So it would be straight across. It would not be a bulb or a cul-de-sac configuration as are in other cul-de-sac type locations.
What does the fire department think about this?
It was actually their recommendation. Initially, what the proposal called for was to, as you know, the fire department requires two access points for emergency access. Originally, we were looking at, well, obviously, you know, it can't be accessed by the same street. So you can only count one of these two driveways for one access point for emergency access. The other that was contemplated was this one back here at the northern portion of the site here, and so that involved again some other improvements, and we really wanted to minimize accessibility to, you know, because of the neighborhoods over here, and so with the fire department, what they suggested is maybe if it was just going to put some you know, access gates back here that would be for emergency access only, and this would satisfy their requirement for that, rather than reconfigure this whole knuckle here.
One more question.
Sure.
This project will generate a lot of truck traffic on
6th Street right here.
6th Street and on Sterling.
That's correct.
And I'm wondering if there's any kind of provision in place for future improvement of those streets.
There actually is, and we are currently, there's the multi-jurisdictional effort that's in place now with the Inland Valley Development Agency, which is we're looking at they're currently developing a specific plan that goes up to 5th Street for the corridor that's going to go from Tippecanoe up to the 210 freeway, which would be an industrial corridor, if you will. And so that plan involves significant infrastructure improvements, both roadway, infrastructure, water, sewer, and that to support future industrial development along this corridor between 5th and 3rd Street. And so the idea is that this would then be able to tie into that. I believe that is part of the exercise. Again, this is a work in progress with the IVDA, where we're looking at other opportunities that are adjacent to the current project area, their scope of work, project description, as a potential to include these. The timing of that project is well over a year out, and so there are a number of applicants. I know that Highland has some projects that are further down over here by the ward map that they're looking at industrial projects and zone changes, if you will. They have some residential neighborhoods that are in this area that the Council of Highland has talked about possibly redeveloping to eliminate kind of the blighted conditions there from those existing residences. So there has been a lot of discussion ongoing of what the improvements need to be here, and so the idea is that this would tie into that.
One more question.
Of course.
Drainage. This whole area, I think, the development is going to depend on a good drainage system, and I'm wondering what master plan we might have in place for that.
Well, this would tie in, and maybe if I may, maybe Dave Milinarski, the engineer, might be able to speak to specifics to that. But again, the idea from the specific plan that's being contemplated for this entire area recognizes those conditions. Again, there's been a concerted effort with the various agencies to gather information, whether other studies, existing studies that might have been done, analysis, sharing of information, so that we have, everything, in one document and included in that. And I know that Dave's been included as part of that effort, and maybe you can provide some technical expertise on that. If you will.
You're giving me too much credit, Mr. Mujica.
David Molnarski, 413 McKay Drive, San Bernardino, California. I'm one of the consultants working with the applicant, Neil Gascon, who's here in the audience tonight. And as Mr. Mujica indicated, we're in agreement with the modified condition of approval. Could you bring up the site plan for me, please? You'll notice, Mr. Chairman, at the left-hand side of this graphic, there is a, oh great, the red button. Right in this area, this is a basin that's designed and will be utilized for both water quality and for drainage. So this project is being designed to not add any additional drainage onto 6th Street. We're going to maintain everything on the property and then perk as much of the water that's generated back into the groundwater.
I have a question about that.
Yes, sir.
I read the original report on this. I don't know if any changes have been made, but I believe there was a statement in there that detention basins are not allowed. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of that. No, they're using a, well, maybe you can explain what we're installing here. Dave.
Well, these basins are quite common throughout the city. I don't know of any project that has been developed in recent times that doesn't have a similar type of basin, not only for the increased hydrology impacts, but for water quality to flush out the contaminants that come out of the first event of rainfall. So I don't know of any prohibition for basins in this. In fact, it's become the norm in Southern California.
I understand that, and I agree with it. I'm all in favor of it and saving as much of our runoff as we can as a resource. But the report, the staff report stated at one point in there that detention basins are not allowed. And I'm just wondering if that is still in there. No, a detention. Yes, a retention basin, I believe it was.
I wasn't aware of that statement, and so the detention is required. When a project is first contemplated, we have a pre-application process where the applicant submits a preliminary, what we call WQMP, to demonstrate how water will be retained on the site. And there's different mechanisms of doing that, and that allows them to justify that they will be able to comply with water retention or detention, whatever the term wants to be, and it works in concert with their project design or their building. Once that is cleared and once we're final with that, then when they submit their formal application, they submit their final WQMP that would be then used for the construction drawings and their grading plans and such to ensure that that the building will not interfere with any potential runoff or water retention or detention on the site, however we want to word it.
Well, there seems to be some confusion about whether it's retention or detention. And
water has to stay on the property.
All right, that's retention. Yeah. And detention would be allowing for drainage through the basin.
If I could, it's going to function twofold. It's going to retain in the drainage that's generated for the water quality aspect. We will be releasing small amount of water, the same amount of water that is currently being generated from this site will be released through the driveway approaches, but it's a very minimal amount of water compared to the fact that we're paving and we're building on a considerable amount of this property. So there will be some water released, but no more than what's currently being released. The water quality portion, again, will perk into the ground table. And then the rest of the water will be retained and perk as well.
My concern is with the water that will be released. Where does it go?
It goes on to 6th Street, which is where it currently goes.
Where there is no drainage.
Well, we will be dedicating and improving portions of 6th Street with curb gutter.
Just in front of your property?
Just in front of the property,
Yeah.
which is typical of any requirement.
I understand that. I'm concerned about the intersection of 6th and Sterling.
Right.
And slightly north of Sterling, there's a low spot in there that retains water now.
Right. And we're not going to be contributing to impacting that condition. It'll remain as it currently exists today. But we will be improving portions of the 6th Street area that currently are deficient with those improvements.
Yeah, and if I may, Chair, following up on that, Oliver alluded to the specific plan, the multi-jurisdictional specific plan between the city, the county, and IVDA. We recognize there are regional improvements that need to be made. This project will pay development impact fees appropriate to mitigate those regional, the need for regional improvements. You know, the number of unlined channels in the city of San Bernardino is pretty high, considering that we've been a developed city for over 150 years. So they are not obligated through this project to mitigate those except for payment of the development impact fees. So the project has been fully reviewed by Public Works Department, both city and county. There was an environmental document that was circulated. If you go through the packet, there's actually a letter from County Public Works. So they have reviewed the document. Staff is satisfied that they are addressing all of their local impacts, and then they're paying their fair share of those regional improvements.
If I may, after consulting with my lifeline here, my understanding that a retention basin allows it to puddle. So detention basins allow the water to percolate on site. So we no longer allow you to put a retention basin in, and what you might have seen before is you kind of see these little ponds out there after a rainstorm. So the idea is that now it's supposed to percolate down into the ground and not run off or be held on site. Final answer.
Thank you.
Quickly, for the record, before we go further, I'd like to recuse myself again on this project. I was involved in this initially in terms of the concept, so again, I'd like to recuse myself. Thank you.
The issue before us is related to us changing the zoning district from a residential medium to an industrial light. And the northern portion of that just butted right up against residential, and I believe there's apartment complexes on the west portion of it. That really impacts that area significantly. I'm interested in the is it a multi-regional approach, and what their plan is? Is it you expect that 6th Street corridor to become all industrial light industrial zoning in that area, and from where to where will that take place?
Let me pull up the aerial here. So just to kind of set the context, you, Commissioner, I think understand the context with the airport on the south side of 3rd Street. We are transitioning this neighborhood to a industrial neighborhood, given its proximity to the airport and all the investment that's been made in the airport over the last 20 years since it was closed. That's what we're looking at. The specific plan project was initiated by the airport authority. They are funding, they're funding probably 90% of the cost of the planning work and the environmental studies. The jurisdictions, the city of San Bernardino, the city of Highland, are contributing in-kind services. Oliver and I have attended a number of those meetings. So we haven't finalized the land use plan far enough to, it's not been out for public review, but the plan does look at all industrial uses along 3rd and 5th Street. And we are looking at those transitions to the north, because some of those neighborhoods, there's always a transition. You're always going to transition from industrial to non-industrial at some point. But those parcels that are developed down there, it really is not a quality residential neighborhood, I guess is the best way to put it. The airport right now doesn't have a lot of flights coming in and out of it, but they are actively pursuing commercial carriers. They do have a number of industrial flights that go in and out of there. So yes, long term, this entire corridor will be transitioned to commercial and industrial uses. That's what this specific plan contemplates, but and what you might be getting at is that plan's not finalized yet, but we do anticipate that's where this neighborhood is going based upon the hundreds of millions of dollars that's been invested in bringing the airport up to commercial standards. So hopefully that answers your question.
But you indicated 3rd and I think 5th. This is on 6th.
That is correct. There will be, again, a transition at some point. We are looking at the specific land boundaries actually do go up to 6th Street as well.
And my question for the developer would be, this was agendized before, and then I think it was taken off our agenda and rescheduled. Have you had any input from the surrounding homeowners or the owners of the apartment complexes in which the northern end of it reaches into?
Well, in fact, one of our neighbors, Mr. Cohen, is here in the audience. Him and his family own the 16 acres, the large vacant parcel right below the white arrow on the screen, and they're also involved with the well site that Mr. Mujica mentioned earlier. So we've had conversations. I have driven the neighborhood and spent some time in the neighborhood. We understand that it's a transitional area. One of the issues that we've uncovered, besides homeless camps in and around this property, there probably currently exist well over 1,000 tires of all sizes, shapes, dimensions, old mattresses, you name it. It occupies the northern end of Mr. Gascon's property, the subject property. There was a major fire there about a month and a half ago that almost encroached into the residential area. Mr. Cohen's property, he spent money over the years trying to maintain it. East Valley Water District owns the larger parcel to the south. We have a major pump station at the northeast corner of right next to the property, and we have a Burtec facility for their trucks and so forth across the street. So it's a rough area with a lot of need. Graffiti was mentioned. There's Constantine wire. I really think that stabilization and development in this area is going to have a positive impact. And through the environmental requirements going through the initial study and some of the mitigation that Mr. Persico mentioned, we've taken precaution for the interfacing with walls, landscaping, other improvements, and that's all part of the conditions of approval and the mitigation monitoring program. We've also agreed to the regional fees for paying our fair share for certain public improvements. So we really see this as a way of stabilizing and trying to be conducive as a transition use from the airport as we encroach north.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kind of piggyback on Commissioner Gallagher. Were these people notified?
Yes.
Of the meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we did send notices as required, 500-foot radius from the property line, the four corners of the property, which would include those residents that are in the city of Highland.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would, if you don't mind, I would also like to add that during the evolution of this project, we've also met with the San Manuel tribe. We've met with East Valley Water District. I met with the Development Services Department over at the City of Highland. So for the past couple of years, we've tried to notify people and get as much input as possible, so including the public noticing that Mr. Mujica referred to.
Question for staff. Who owns the property abutting 3rd Street between each side of Sterling? Is part of that the airport property?
Are you talking about north of 3rd Street?
Yes.
I believe that's owned by the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is a mixed ownership, but the tribe does have major land holdings along 3rd Street and 5th Street. They're one of the participants in the specific plan effort.
Do you know if they have any development plans?
Excuse me?
Any development plans?
I don't know.
Nothing in the process at this time.
Any further questions, comments? Anything from the audience?
Chair, if I may, I know Oliver read the condition into the record. That would actually replace the existing condition 7, which talks about the well. And I saw we've got the applicant's representative, Mr. Milnarski, agreeing to that revised condition 7. I saw Mr. Cohen nodding, but I'd like to get his verbal approval, if possible, that he is amenable to the revised condition. If you could, Mr. Cohen.
It was 21S,
oh,
page
21F?
15. Page 15 on second condition.
So, yeah, then is that, Mr. Cohen, are you agreeable to that?
We're okay with modifying 21F as it was read into the record, and we plan to work with the applicant to resolve it.
If you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Albert Cohen, 15490 Ventura Boulevard, Sherman Oaks, California. I am one of the owners of the adjacent 2 parcels that are 16.5 acres that are zoned OIP, Office Industrial Park, and this well site. So the applicant has agreed to work with us on doing something with this well site that's located within his property, but we have easements going to and from it to 6th Street. So they've agreed they're going to plot everything and sit down with us and either take us out of the picture or do something else so we stay in the picture. At this point, we are amenable to the condition that basically says what I just stated, that they're going to work with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, before I step away, I just want to thank staff. This has been a team effort, as Commissioner Liang indicated. He was on this project when we first filed our application, and Ms. Powers, who's not here tonight, did quite a bit of work working with us as well. So we want to thank the commissioner, but we want to thank Ms. Powers and Mr. Mujica for helping us get to this point. So appreciate it very much.
Any further questions or comments from anyone? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2017-056, forwarding a recommendation to the mayor and city council, the adoption of the mitigated negative declaration and approve of general plan amendment 14-09, development code, and the zoning map amendment 14-18, and development permit type D 16-25, based on findings and facts and subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. The motion carries. And that brings us to item 10, general plan amendment number 16-09. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair. As you mentioned, item 10 tonight is General Plan Amendment 16-09, Development Code Zoning Map Amendment 16-11, Subdivision 16-8 for tentative parcel map 19814, and Development Permit Type D 16-26. This is a request to change the general plan, land use designation, and zoning district of property currently zoned industrial light and public commercial recreation to all industrial light. This is a property approximately 62 acres in size, currently comprised of 6 separate parcels, looking to consolidate it down to 2 parcels, and then subsequently develop, establish, and operate industrial high cube warehouse building approximately 1,065,000 square feet in size. This property is located at 1494 South Waterman Avenue. The aerial of the property here, the majority of the property currently in the portion zoned public commercial recreation is currently the golf course down on South Waterman. And then there is a small portion to the north, little finger that goes up towards the top, that is the industrially zoned portion. As you can see, as I just mentioned, the general plan designation for the property currently is open space with a small bit of industrial. They're looking to change it to all industrial, as shown on the right-hand side. And then same thing with the zoning district. It's a portion of light industrial and public commercial recreation, and they're looking to change it to all industrial, as again shown left to right. The site currently, as I mentioned, is the San Bernardino Golf Club down on South Waterman. This is looking kind of at the main entrance of the site, which should actually be maintained as the primary entrance for vehicular traffic to the proposed development. This is at the intersection of South Waterman and Park Center Circle South. There's another photo of the site coming along South Waterman. This is looking up from kind of the lower corner of the property, looking slightly northwest. And then the northern boundary of the site is primarily Dumas Street, although the site actually doesn't extend all the way up to Dumas except for a small portion. As you can see here, this would be the northwest corner of the property, where some of the driving range does extend a little closer to the street. And then this is further up the street from the last photo, up Washington Street, where it does intersect with Orange Show, looking south towards the property. The site plan, as you can see, one single building located kind of generally running east to west, further south on the property. The main entrance, as I mentioned, over here on the far right, kind of centered on the page, which is the current intersection with Park Center Circle South. Vehicular parking areas in the front, detention basin in the back on the southwest corner, and then truck parking, docks on the north and south side, and truck parking kind of centered to the north of the property. Coming from the north, there is an access road that would be created for the truck traffic exclusively that would run up Washington, up that street in the last photograph. There are currently 2 alternatives that we have written into the recommendation this evening. These are still being sorted out by the developer just as a result of some property acquisition that's still being completed. There are conditions for offsite improvements reflecting both alternatives that have been written in as option 1 and 2 into the offsite improvements in the resolution. And then floor plan of the building, typical industrial building, 2 potential office locations. These are located on the east end of the building, fronting Waterman Avenue. The elevations of the building, specifically, there's a blow up of the eastern front, the eastern facing side. This would be what is visible from Waterman Avenue, with office area in the corner, and then articulation, both horizontal and vertical, running along to help break up the faces of the building. And then the proposed landscaping for the site, as I mentioned, detention basin in the back that would capture the water from the site, and then landscaped areas along the access road to the north, and then primarily focused along the vehicular parking area along the street, so that you do have a nice entry to the site and nice landscaping all along the public right-of-way. And one correction I would like to make note of, both in the staff report and in the resolution this evening, as originally written, it mentioned consolidating the 6 parcels into 1. That was just a typo in the report. It is 2 parcels that they would be consolidating to from the 6. 1 for the majority of the site, approximately 61.5 acres, and then about a half-acre parcel that would replace a well site currently on the property. And our recommendation this evening, is to approve Resolution 2017-63, forwarding a recommendation to the Mayor and City Council to certify the environmental impact report for the project, and then approve all 4 applications based off the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions. We do have the applicant and their team here this evening if you do have any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Martin, question. So what the purpose of the EIR? I'm not clear. What are the overriding consideration? Why are we doing an EIR for this?
Let's see, Oliver, can you on that one? Yeah, you might be able to help with that.
Good evening, Tracy Zinn with the consulting firm T&B Planning, 17542 East 17th Street, Tustin, California. We were the consulting firm that prepared the environmental impact report. There are a couple of overriding considerations that the City Council will be asked to support for the project. Because of the level of truck traffic that this project will generate, the level of NOx emissions on a daily basis would exceed the South Coast Air Quality Management District's daily threshold. So there's an overriding consideration for that, as well as greenhouse gas emissions for the same reason. About 85% of those emissions are the mobile source emissions from the truck traffic. And then also there's a temporary noise impact on Washington. There are some residential structures along that street. They are non-conforming, they are an industrial area, but because they exist there, the truck traffic noise will exceed the significance thresholds. There were 2 mitigation measures that were considered for that impact. One was applying rubberized asphalt to the pavement of Washington. That really isn't feasible for truck traffic because the noise is generated by the engine, which is higher than the pavement. The only other option to mitigate that impact would be to construct a wall. And if we did that, the residents would not be able to access their driveways if we completely surrounded them with a wall. So that needs to be overridden. There's also 2 traffic impacts in the long term for build out year 2040. It's not a direct impact of the project, it's a cumulative impact, and that occurs at the intersection of Auto Center Drive and Orange Show, and at the Waterman westbound off-ramp to I-10. Those cannot be fully mitigated because they're not fully within the jurisdiction of the city.
Any yes.
This is for staff. We do give up a lot of land to warehouses in the city of San Bernardino. directly across from there, and it may not be directly across, I believe is the Hilton Hotel, which is a nice, I think there's
It's across Waterman, just to the south
Right.
on the other side of the river.
to the south.
Mhm.
Is it the intent, as far as your interpretation of the general plan, that we make Waterman Corridor a warehouse district?
I don't believe there's not an intent to dedicate any specific corridor to the industrial development. And the way the project's being designed, partly to address that, with that northerly access road that I mentioned going up to Orange Show, because Orange Show does include a lot more of the industrial. It is that kind of that cross corridor where that traffic is centered. The truck traffic the site's been designed to route the traffic up that street and across, as opposed to having access for the trucks going up and down Waterman. So that would reduce a little bit of that type of impact.
They go on Orange Show Road, which direction? West?
I mean,
East?
both directions, depending on where the trucks are heading to or coming from.
If I could also follow up on your question, Commissioner, about industrial uses and kind of where those would go. That is something that we have talked about at a staff level. We are concerned about the spread, if you will, of industrial uses migrating up Waterman Avenue, so we have talked about that. As part of the long-term budgeting for the city, we have put in a request, I've put in a request to do a general plan update beginning in 2 years. The general plan is really the best place, I think, to take a comprehensive look at land uses citywide, and that is definitely an issue for us. If that project doesn't get funded, I think independent of that, we would do some sort of study specifically looking at industrial uses and where those uses might go. So we are very sensitive to that as well, because we don't want to, there do have to be some limits, but where those would go is still an open question.
I have a speaker slip for Ned Sortino. What did you? Yeah, that's you. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
There we go. Honorable Chair and the Commissioners. My name is Ned Shortino, Vice President of Development for the Hillwood Investment Properties. Since 2002, since Hillwood been here, we've developed over 13 million square feet, generated approximately 800 million taxable dollars to the city, and then also generated upwards of 10,000 jobs. It is our request, and we do take concerns of our use and our logistics. That's why we're spending millions of dollars in directing our truck traffic to up Washington to Orange Show. We stood with Jack Brown a number of years ago and said, you won't see any of our trucks on Hospitality Lane. And we still honor that of today. So if you look at the designs of our buildings and so forth, we focus on Orange Show, which is the truck route, which takes you to 215, also takes you to Tippecanoe to the freeway, which we've all contributed millions of dollars to fund that intersection and so forth. If I can take the minute also to just walk you through this project. It's very complicated. We're working with the city of Riverside. We're working with the San Bernardino Water, working with your staff. And it's been a year, and it's been an awful lot of work. And we can stand here today and say that Hillwood can't do what we do without your staff and your city. We bring them in as a team player between all of the players from Mark to Oliver to Travis to Gary, Martin, Robert Sepulveda, and Mahmoud. I mean, we've spent hours and hours with them throughout the year. And we do really appreciate that, and we don't take that lightly, that relationship. And that's why we here as Hillwood like to think that we're the local developer in your town. And we do take pride in what we do here.
We seek Fortune 500 companies, and I think we've demonstrated what we can do here for your city. We do have our engineers, our architects, and some of our staff here is Kathy Hoffer and John Grace to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes.
This is just sort of a general question regarding land use. Seems like we don't have a whole lot of public open space around. We're losing a big chunk with this here. Is there, in our general plan, do we have any areas reserved?
We actually are quite fortunate. The city has more park space per capita than the national standard. You are correct. We are converting the golf course. We've worked, as Ned says, we've worked very hard on the project. There is actually a specific condition that talks about, and that's condition 9 on page 17, where the applicant would be installing new medians and median landscaping along both Waterman and Orange Show Road as a mitigation measure or a replacement. I shouldn't call it a mitigation measure because it really isn't a mitigation measure in the CEQA sense of the words, but as a replacement for that loss. It is not a city-owned facility, as Ned mentioned. It's actually owned by Riverside Public Utility. They have a private operator, RPU does, for the golf course. So it's not a city facility where the city is losing that as open space. But to answer your question, we have more than adequate open space as required by the national standard.
If I can just kind of add to what Mark said, just a couple more specific numbers. As noted on page 5 of the resolution under the findings for the general plan amendment, the city currently still has 51 parks, which total approximately 540 acres. And then as Mark mentioned, this property is privately owned, it's privately operated, no involvement from the city, so it's actually not even included in the park's inventory or open space inventory that the city maintains.
Any further comments, questions? Yes.
I'm going to be voting no on this because I think it really doesn't fit with that area. I think it's close proximity to a very vibrant area of San Bernardino on Hospitality Lane, and just across the street from that, hopefully we can continue to have office buildings in the area, and I would think that another office building where we have for attorneys or whatever other businesses that could and hopefully might come there, but I just don't think that a warehouse fits in that area.
Thank you. I'd like to make a comment about the looking at the map and understanding the traffic flow.
Mm-hmm.
And what this young lady mentioned is as far as the housing, and there were some housings and trying to mitigate some of the noise and so on. I don't understand why a project this large can't perhaps purchase that property where that housing is at and relieve that problem altogether to get rid of some of the noise and some of the residents that might be affected by it. So
maybe I'll let the applicant answer that question, but I know that we have worked very hard with them. They're looking at potential acquisition of 2 of the residents on the south side of Washington. San Bernardino is not unusual in the fact that we have a lot of non-conforming uses, particularly older residential and industrial uses. It's almost impossible, I will never want to say impossible, but almost impossible for a city to make the nexus requirement where somebody has to buy out non-conforming industrial or any sort of use, in this case residential, to build their project. But they have mitigated it to the extent possible with the statement of overriding consideration. We do fully support, from a staff perspective at least, fully support the project. We recognize and respect, obviously, our role vis-a-vis the commission, and the commission doesn't always follow our recommendation. But we have worked mostly Oliver and Travis have worked very hard on this project and done I will say, a very good job balancing all of the factors to come up with a set of conditions and mitigation measures that we're willing to stand behind. And I'll let Ned maybe discuss some of the other issues.
We did, just of last Friday, we did come to terms of purchasing that one residence that is there on Washington. We do have an offer on the adjacent property. We're being told it's in probate, so we don't know what the extent of that will be. We're also being told there's some other development going on, possibly just across the street to the west of Dumas and in Washington, so we'll see how that transpires. But we are doing a lot of improvements into that area that are costing millions of dollars, and so the development can only carry so much. Also, we have a partner who is RPU, and but we take we take what we do real personal, and we respect your opinions. The golf course isn't doing very well financially, not to say in how many years they would actually not even be there, and then you would just have nothing but a 70 acres there of a field, office. The marketing is just not there. So I mean, there is some room across the street that is open for office, but really we think that this would fit well. We have a good demand for this type of, and the way the building was designed, it is actually for multi-use, and it's more of a logistics. It's not a warehouse facility, and we're very optimistic that the building will again generate the jobs that the city has been asking us to bring to the city.
Any further questions?
I have just one question as far as, has any traffic analysis been done as far as the trucks? Has that been done for this site?
Yeah, I'll let Travis talk about that, but as part of the EIR, there was a full traffic study, and back to Ned's comment earlier, the trucks are at some expense to the developer being directed to Orange Show, so that if they go south, they would take Tippecanoe south. There's been a significant number of improvements done along Tippecanoe, particularly with the new off-ramp that was just completed. So they are very conscious about directing truck traffic to Tippecanoe for trucks which would be traveling on the 10. And then if they're accessing the 215, they would take Orange Show out to the 215.
Is there
and I'll
still
let Travis talk specifics.
Okay.
I'm sorry, is
there
some
still a
follow-up
plan
question?
for like a truck, Mountain Avenue, a truck route off of the freeway that comes up over to Tippecanoe? Is that still in the works?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wouldn't. That would be more of a
Mahmood.
kind of a public works question, getting into the capital improvements.
Okay.
I really wouldn't have that information. But as Mark mentioned, yes, there was a complete traffic analysis done as part of the project, and then also it would be required regardless of the EIR, but as part of the overall EIR that did look at all those issues and has put in the appropriate mitigation both for the access road up Washington and the necessary widening that needs to be done to that and other improvements to get those trucks up to Orange Show, and then also the improvements along Waterman, including some, I believe, a lane to allow vehicles coming in and off the site merging successfully onto Waterman. because that is a, can be a bit of a high traffic area there, or high speed area.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, I will call for the question. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2017-063, forwarding a recommendation to the mayor and city council, the certification of the final environmental impact report and adopting the findings of fact, statement of overriding considerations and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and approval of the general plan amendment 16-09, development code zoning map amendment 16-11, subdivision 16-08, tentative parcel map 19814, and development permit type D 16-26 based on the findings of fact and subject of recommended conditions of approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. We have 2 noes.
Excuse me, I thought Commissioner Liang was recusing himself. Not on this.
I believe that was the previous item.
Sorry, my mistake.
What's the status of the motion?
Anticipating the question, under Resolution 9901, which is the rules of the Planning Commission, general plan amendments, zoning amendments have to be approved by the affirmative vote of at least 5, and it sounds like you have 5 affirmative votes, so it would pass.
Motion carries. And that concludes our public hearing. This brings us to public comments, items not on the agenda. Do we have any? I hear none. How about Planning Commission reports and announcements? Any reports or announcements? Apparently not. Director's report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll have Melina pass out the monthly major projects list. Beyond that, I just want to briefly give the Planning Commission an update on the development code. Travis gave a presentation at the last meeting on the status update. The City Council tomorrow night at their meeting will be receiving a similar update. It has been slightly modified. We put a little bit more background in there and added a little bit more detail, a couple of the sections, but if anybody's looked at the council agenda, it is the staff report the council is receiving is largely the same as the staff report that the Planning Commission saw last month. And that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries, believe it or not.